I stood in the living room of my childhood home in suburban Denver, Colorado, watching my world crumble with 8 simple words. Marcus, my older brother, delivered the crushing blow without flinching. No one wants you here. You're dragging this family down. Our parents sat motionless on the worn leather couch where Wed watched countless Sunday football games. Dad stared at his calloused hands while Mom pursed her lips in disappointment. 6 years it poured into Richardson Construction, the family business. 6 years of suggesting innovations they called reckless dreams. Without defending myself, I headed upstairs. The silence in my childhood bedroom felt heavier than the boxes I was filling. Every item I touched carried memories of a family that apparently never wanted me around. My high school football trophies went into one box, college textbooks into another. The business degree hanging on my wall got wrapped in newspaper, the same degree my family had mocked me for earning while working construction during summers. I folded clothes methodically, muscle memory from years of packing for job sites. My tool belt went into its leather case, each hammer and level representing skills learned alongside men who claimed to respect hard work above all else. The irony tasted bitter in my mouth. Richardson Construction had been my life since graduating Colorado State University. I'd worked every position from apprentice to project manager, learning the trade from foundation to finish work. Loading my pickup truck in the driveway, I caught Mrs. Peterson from next door peeking through her curtains. Shed watched me grow up, probably wondering why I was moving out with garbage bags and cardboard boxes instead of celebrating some achievement. The autumn air carried the scent of burning leaves and promises of winter, fitting for an ending that felt like death. My crime hadn't been laziness or incompetence. It suggested Richardson Construction expand into sustainable building practices and smart home technology. While other firms embraced energy-efficient designs and modern systems, we stuck to methods Dad learned in the 1980s. Every client meeting where I mentioned solar installations or smart thermostats earned me lectures about proven techniques and staying in our lane. The apartment I'd rented across town was a modest 1-bedroom in a complex near the University of Colorado Denver campus. Graduate students and young professionals populated the building, people my age who weren't afraid of innovation. As I unpacked in the cramped living space, my phone buzzed with a call from Danny Rodriguez, a homeowner whose kitchen renovation Wed completed last spring. "Leon, I wanted to thank you again for that kitchen project. The smart lighting system you suggested has been incredible." Danny's enthusiasm reminded me why I'd pushed for modern solutions despite family resistance. "Actually, I'm calling because something interesting happened today. Richardson Construction was supposed to present to Greenfield Development for that massive housing project. Did you guys pull out?" My stomach dropped. The Greenfield Development contract represented Richardson Construction's biggest opportunity in years, a $2 million sustainable housing community requiring exactly the kind of expertise it'd been developing. I'd spent 8 months cultivating that relationship, researching environmental requirements, and preparing proposals that showcased innovative building techniques. "What do you mean?" I asked, though dread was already filling my chest. Marcus gave the presentation this morning. Apparently, he dismissed all the environmental requirements as unnecessary complications. The developers were stunned. They specifically wanted sustainable building practices, and he basically told them those standards were overrated. Greenfield chose Emerald Construction instead. You know, the firm that specializes in green building. I sank onto my second-hand couch, boxes surrounding me like monuments to rejection. Richardson Construction had just lost the contract I'd personally cultivated for 8 months. Marcus had sabotaged the presentation by ignoring everything that made our proposal competitive. The client had requested sustainable building expertise, and my family had literally pushed out the only person in the company who understood that market. Danny continued talking, but his words faded into background noise. The realization hit me like a sledgehammer to the chest. My family hadn't rejected me because I was wrong about the business direction. They'd pushed me out precisely because I was right, and they were terrified of admitting their traditional approach was failing in a changing market. The rejection wasn't personal. It was their fear of accepting that the construction industry had evolved beyond their comfort zone. Sitting in my empty apartment, surrounded by the remnants of a life they'd discarded, I understood something crucial. Richardson Construction hadn't lost a $2 million contract because of bad luck or market conditions. They'd lost it because they'd chosen pride over progress, stubbornness over adaptation, and they'd blamed me for pointing out the very problems that were now destroying everything they'd built. The first month of independence taught me lessons no construction manual could provide. Working as Leon Martinez, independent contractor, I took renovation jobs that established firms considered too small or complicated. Bathroom remodels in historic homes, kitchen updates for young families, accessibility modifications for aging homeowners, projects that required creativity instead of volume. My dining table became my office, covered with blueprints, laptop computers, and certification materials for sustainable building practices. While Richardson Construction relied on word of mouth and long-time relationships, I built my reputation through detailed proposals and innovative solutions. Every client meeting showcased energy-efficient options, smart home integrations, and materials that reduced environmental impact. Janet Morrison became my first major independent client after meeting me at a home improvement expo. The retired teacher was building an environmentally friendly retirement home on 5 acres near Golden, Colorado. Her project requirements read like a textbook on sustainable construction: solar panels, geothermal heating, rainwater collection systems, and smart home automation. Most contractors looked at my plans like I was speaking a foreign language, Janet explained during our initial consultation. You're the first person who understood exactly what I wanted and could explain how to achieve it. Working with Janet revealed how much the industry had changed while Richardson Construction remained frozen in time. Modern clients researched sustainable building techniques online, demanded energy-efficient solutions, and prioritized long-term value over initial cost savings. My family had been serving an increasingly obsolete market without realizing their customer base was evolving. The work was challenging but rewarding. Installing a geothermal system required coordinating with specialized subcontractors I'd never worked with before. Programming smart home automation systems meant learning technology that didn't exist when I started construction work. Each new skill expanded my capabilities and differentiated my services from traditional contractors. 3 months into my independent career, I was booking projects 6 weeks in advance. Word spread through professional networks about the contractor who understood both traditional craftsmanship and modern technology. Architects began recommending me for complex renovations that required historical preservation alongside contemporary upgrades. But success felt hollow without anyone to share it with. Working alone meant celebrating accomplishments in an empty apartment, talking through problems with no one but my reflection. I'd traded family connection for professional freedom, gaining independence but losing the camaraderie that made construction work enjoyable. The construction industry in Denver was smaller than people realized. Suppliers, subcontractors, and inspectors formed a tight network where information traveled quickly. Through casual conversations at lumber yards and electrical supply stores, I learned that Richardson Construction was struggling more than I'd imagined. Bill Henderson, who supplied plumbing fixtures to half the contractors in the metro area, mentioned that Richardson Construction had fallen behind on payments. Your dad's always been good for his debts, but Marcus seems to be having cash flow problems. They're asking for extended payment terms on orders that used to be paid immediately. Equipment rental companies told similar stories. Richardson Construction was returning tools early, canceling orders, and negotiating payment plans for basic equipment rentals. The signs pointed to a company in financial distress, cutting expenses wherever possible to maintain operations. Tom Bradley, the family accountant who had managed Richardson Construction's books for 15 years, tracked me down at Janet Morrison's job site on a gray February afternoon. His unexpected visit immediately triggered alarm bells. Tom never made house calls unless something serious was happening. "Leon, I need to talk with you about your family's business situation." Tom's usually cheerful demeanor was replaced by professional concern. "I've been working with your parents for years, and I've never seen them this worried." We sat in my truck while Tom explained what I'd suspected but hadn't wanted to acknowledge. Richardson Construction had lost 3 more major contracts since the Greenfield development disaster. Marcus had attempted to compensate by bidding aggressively on smaller projects, often pricing jobs below actual costs to maintain cash flow. "The problem is execution," Tom continued. Marcus inherited your father's work ethic, but none of his business instincts. Hez taking on projects the company can't handle properly, then facing penalty clauses when deadlines get missed or quality standards aren't met. The numbers Tom shared were devastating. Richardson Construction owed nearly $200,000 to suppliers and subcontractors. The company's reputation, built over 30 years of reliable service, was deteriorating as word spread about missed deadlines and cost overruns. But Tom's most shocking revelation concerned my father's actions years earlier. While reviewing old correspondence files, Tom had discovered emails that changed my understanding of family history. When I was 25 and first attempting to start independent projects, my father had actively sabotaged my efforts. Your dad called several potential clients back then, warning them that you were inexperienced and unreliable. Tom's voice carried disappointment and regret. He told people you were too young to handle major projects and that working with you would be a mistake. The betrayal cut deeper than the recent rejection. For years, I'd wondered why my early attempts at independence had failed so completely. Clients who seemed enthusiastic during initial meetings would suddenly become unavailable or choose other contractors without explanation. I'd blamed my youth, inexperience, or poor presentation skills. Now I understood the truth. My own father had systematically undermined my attempts at independence, ensuring I'd remain dependent on Richardson Construction. The recent rejection wasn't spontaneous. It was the culmination of years of deliberately limiting my options while maintaining control over my career. Tom's visit wasn't purely informational. Richardson Construction was facing bankruptcy within 60 days unless something dramatic changed. The family who'd rejected me as unwanted was now desperately struggling with the consequences of their decisions. Your parents ask about you constantly, Tom admitted before leaving. They're too proud to reach out directly, but they know they made a mistake pushing you out. The business is failing exactly where you said it would, by refusing to adapt to market changes. That evening, I sat in my apartment reviewing Tom's revelations. The family who'd claimed I was dragging them down had been sabotaging my independence for years, then rejecting me when their own methods finally failed. But understanding their motivations didn't diminish the pain of betrayal or the years of stunted growth caused by their interference. Outside my window, Denver's skyline glowed with lights from office buildings and residential complexes, structures built by contractors who embraced innovation instead of fighting it. Somewhere across town, my family was struggling to save a business that could have thrived if they'd trusted my vision instead of fearing it. By late spring, Future Build Solutions had evolved from a desperate attempt at independence into a legitimate business success. The name reflected my commitment to forward-thinking construction practices, and the results spoke louder than any marketing campaign. I'd hired 2 employees who shared my enthusiasm for combining traditional craftsmanship with modern technology. Jake Williamson brought electrical expertise that most general contractors lacked. The 26-year-old had studied renewable energy systems at the Colorado School of Mines before specializing in smart home installations. His ability to integrate solar panels, electric vehicle charging stations, and home automation systems made Future Build Solutions unique among smaller contracting firms. Carmen Rodriguez added carpentry skills honed through 15 years of high-end residential work. She'd grown frustrated with contractors who prioritized speed over quality, seeking opportunities to learn sustainable building techniques that most established firms ignored. Her attention to detail and willingness to master new methods made her invaluable for complex renovation projects. Together, we completed projects that showcased what modern construction could achieve. A Victorian home restoration in the Highlands neighborhood combined historical preservation with geothermal heating and discrete solar installations. A new construction project near Cherry Creek integrated smart home technology with materials sourced from sustainable suppliers. Each completed job generated referrals from impressed clients who'd never seen contractors deliver such comprehensive solutions. Future Build Solutions deliberately operated under the radar of Denver's established construction community. Instead of bidding against Richardson Construction and similar firms for traditional projects, we targeted clients who specifically wanted innovative building approaches. Architects working on LEED-certified projects, homeowners planning net-zero energy homes, commercial developers pursuing green building certifications. These clients paid premium prices for expertise that most contractors couldn't provide. The financial success was gratifying but secondary to professional satisfaction. Every morning brought challenges that required creative problem-solving instead of repetitive routine. Installing a rainwater collection system meant coordinating with landscape architects and irrigation specialists. Programming smart home systems required learning software applications and networking protocols. Each project expanded our collective knowledge and capabilities. Local media began noticing future build solutions as sustainable building practices gained mainstream attention. The Denver Post featured our net zero energy home in an article about residential renewable energy adoption. Colorado Public Radio interviewed me about smart home technology trends affecting the construction industry. Recognition from respected outlets brought credibility that years of traditional construction work had never achieved. But success carried emotional complications. Every achievement reminded me of conversations with my family about industry evolution and market opportunities. The recognition I'd sought from parents and siblings was coming from strangers who appreciated innovative thinking. Professional validation couldn't replace family acceptance, but it proved that my ideas had merit beyond personal opinion. Industry contacts revealed that Richardson Construction's struggles were becoming common knowledge throughout Denver's construction community. Suppliers were requiring payment on delivery instead of extending normal credit terms. Subcontractors were demanding partial payment up front before beginning work. The financial desperation that Tom Bradley had described was becoming visible to everyone involved in commercial construction. Stories reached me through informal networks that connected all aspects of the building trades. Richardson Construction had abandoned a commercial renovation project halfway through completion when cash flow problems prevented paying subcontractors. Marcus had attempted to hire day laborers for jobs that required licensed specialists, creating safety violations that attracted regulatory attention. The company's bonding capacity had been reduced after claims related to incomplete projects and quality deficiencies. Each piece of information about my family's business difficulties created internal conflict between satisfaction and concern. Part of me felt vindicated. Their rejection was proving costly exactly as I'd predicted. But another part mourned the destruction of something my father had spent decades building. Richardson Construction had provided steady employment for dozens of workers and reliable service for thousands of clients. Watching it crumble felt like witnessing a preventable tragedy. The irony wasn't subtle. While Richardson Construction struggled with outdated methods and declining reputation, Future Build Solutions thrived by embracing the very innovations they'd rejected. We were succeeding in markets they'd dismissed as impractical, using techniques they'd called unnecessarily complicated. The sustainable building practices that Marcus had ridiculed during the Greenfield development presentation were generating consistent profits and satisfied customers. Jake discovered additional evidence of my father's historical interference while organizing project files in our shared office space. Among communication records from my early independent attempts, he found emails proving that Dad had contacted potential clients to warn them against hiring me. The documentation showed systematic efforts to undermine my credibility and limit opportunities for independent success. "This is unbelievable," Jake said, reviewing printouts of correspondence I'd never seen before. "Your dad told the Hendersons that you were too inexperienced for their garage addition. He told the Yamadas that you didn't have proper insurance coverage. He even warned the Parkside Community Center that you might abandon their renovation project halfway through." The evidence confirmed that my early struggles with independent contracting hadn't resulted from personal shortcomings or market conditions. My own father had sabotaged every opportunity, ensuring that failed attempts would drive me back to Richardson Construction as the only viable option. The recent rejection was merely the final chapter in a years-long campaign to control my career choices. Understanding this history helped explain my family's current desperation. They'd systematically eliminated my alternatives to working for Richardson Construction, then rejected me when their own methods began failing. Now they faced bankruptcy while watching me succeed using approaches they'd forbidden me to pursue within their company. Carmen shared insights from conversations with other contractors about Richardson Construction's reputation damage. "People are saying Marcus doesn't understand modern building codes or client expectations, has bidding on projects he can't complete properly, then arguing with inspectors when work doesn't meet standards. The construction industry valued reputation above almost every other factor. Clients chose contractors based on recommendations from previous customers, referrals from architects, and word of mouth within professional networks. Richardson Construction's 30-year reputation was dissolving as stories spread about missed deadlines, cost overruns, and quality problems. Future Build Solutions benefited indirectly from Richardson Construction's struggles as clients sought alternatives to traditional contractors. Our reputation for reliability and innovation attracted customers who'd been disappointed by conventional firms. We weren't actively competing against my family's business, but we were succeeding in the market space that abandoned by refusing to evolve. Spring brought our largest contract opportunity yet. A sustainable housing development worth $1.8 million that required exactly the expertise Richardson Construction lacked. The developer had specifically requested contractors experienced with renewable energy systems, smart home technology, and sustainable building materials. Future Build Solutions was one of only 3 firms in the Denver area qualified to bid on the project. Preparing the proposal required weeks of research, design work, and coordination with specialized suppliers. Jake calculated electrical requirements for solar installations and electric vehicle charging stations in every unit. Carmen developed material specifications using sustainably harvested lumber and recycled content building products. I integrated timeline projections that accounted for the additional complexity of innovative building systems. The contract award notification arrived on a Friday afternoon that felt like validation for every risk I'd taken since leaving Richardson Construction. Future Build Solutions would lead construction of 64 energy-efficient homes incorporating cutting-edge building techniques and technology. The project timeline stretched 18 months, providing steady work for our expanded team while establishing our reputation for large-scale sustainable construction. But celebration was tempered by awareness that we were succeeding where my family had failed. The same market opportunities that Richardson Construction had dismissed were now providing financial security and professional recognition for Future Build Solutions. Their rejection had inadvertently freed me to pursue the exact path they'd considered impossible. Success with the sustainable housing development transformed Future Build Solutions from a promising startup into a regional leader in innovative construction practices. By midsummer, our team had expanded to 8 employees, including a project manager, 2 additional carpenters, an apprentice electrician, and administrative support staff. We were booked solid for the next year with projects ranging from custom sustainable homes to commercial renewable energy installations. The sustainable housing development showcased capabilities that separated Future Build Solutions from traditional contractors. Each home featured solar panel arrays, geothermal heating and cooling systems, smart home automation, electric vehicle charging stations, and building materials with minimal environmental impact. Local media covered our progress extensively, positioning the project as a model for responsible residential development. Professional recognition followed commercial success. The Colorado Green Building Guild invited me to speak at their annual conference about integrating traditional construction skills with sustainable building practices. The Denver Business Journal named Future Build Solutions among the metro area's fastest-growing companies. Colorado State University's construction management program requested case studies of our innovative projects for their curriculum. But industry success couldn't eliminate awareness of Richardson Construction's continuing deterioration. Through the informal networks that connected all Denver area contractors, I learned that my family's business was facing increasingly desperate circumstances. Suppliers were demanding cash payments for materials that had previously been purchased on 30-day credit terms. Insurance companies had canceled their bonding capacity after claims related to incomplete projects and workmanship deficiencies. The most troubling information came from Carlos Mendoza, a plumber who'd worked with Richardson Construction for over a decade. "Your dad seems confused lately," Carlos confided during a chance encounter at a building supply store. "Has making decisions that don't make sense, like ordering materials for jobs that don't exist or forgetting about scheduled inspections." Healthcare concerns added another layer of complexity to an already difficult situation. Dad was 62 years old and had spent his entire adult life performing physical labor that took cumulative tolls on joints, muscles, and overall health. The stress of watching his business fail couldn't be helping underlying medical conditions that had always minimized or ignored completely. Marcus' leadership was proving inadequate for the challenges Richardson Construction faced. had inherited Dad's work ethic and commitment to quality craftsmanship, but lacked the business instincts necessary for managing complex financial and operational problems. His attempts to compensate through aggressive bidding and corner-cutting were accelerating the company's reputation damage instead of stabilizing operations. Tom Bradley made his second unexpected visit to one of our job sites on a sweltering August afternoon. The accountant's expression immediately conveyed that Richardson Construction's situation had worsened significantly since our previous conversation. He waited until Jake and Carmen were occupied with other tasks before approaching me directly. "Leon, I need to update you on your family's financial situation. Things have deteriorated rapidly over the past 3 months." Tom's professional demeanor couldn't mask personal concern for people he'd known for 15 years. Richardson Construction owes nearly $400,000 to suppliers and subcontractors. They haven't made full payroll in 6 weeks. The numbers were staggering. Richardson Construction had gone from profitable family business to bankruptcy candidate in less than 8 months. Tom explained that Marcus had tried to maintain cash flow by bidding on projects below actual costs, hoping to pay current debts with future revenues. When projects inevitably lost money due to unrealistic pricing, the financial hole deepened further. "The most serious problem is insurance coverage," Tom continued. "They lost their commercial liability policy due to unpaid premiums. Without insurance, they can't legally work on any project valued over $50,000. Essentially, Richardson Construction can only take small residential jobs, but those don't generate enough revenue to service existing debt. The insurance situation created a vicious cycle that made recovery nearly impossible. Large projects provided the profit margins necessary to pay down accumulated debt, but Richardson Construction could no longer qualify for substantial contracts without proper insurance coverage. They were trapped in a spiral of declining revenue and increasing financial obligations. Tom's most devastating revelation concerned the family home that my parents had purchased 30 years earlier. Marcus had used the property as collateral for a business loan intended to fund expansion into commercial construction projects. When those projects failed due to Richardson Construction's outdated capabilities, the loan remained, but the revenue to repay it had evaporated. "The bank is preparing foreclosure proceedings," Tom said quietly. "Your parents have less than 3 weeks to pay $200,000, or they'll lose the house where you and Marcus grew up." The emotional impact of potentially losing my childhood home created unexpected internal turmoil. Despite my family's rejection and years of sabotage, the house represented stability and connection to positive memories from before professional conflicts divided us. My parents had worked their entire adult lives to own that property free and clear, only to risk losing everything because of Marcus' poor business decisions. Tom's visit wasn't purely informational. He was subtly exploring whether Future Build Solutions might consider helping Richardson Construction avoid bankruptcy. "Your company has the financial resources and industry expertise to turn things around," he suggested carefully. "You could acquire Richardson Construction's contracts and assets, preserving some value for your family while expanding your own operations." The proposition was both tempting and terrifying. Future Build Solutions had sufficient capital and bonding capacity to absorb Richardson Construction's remaining contracts while settling their debts. But associating our reputation with their failures could damage relationships with clients and suppliers who valued our reliability and professionalism. More personally, helping my family would mean working with people who'd rejected me, sabotaged my early career, and claimed I was dragging them down. Marcus had delivered the crushing words that drove me from their home and business. My parents had nodded agreement with his assessment that no one wanted me around. Extending assistance felt like validating their belief that I should be grateful for any opportunity to remain connected to their world. But Tom's information also revealed that my family's financial crisis was affecting innocent people who depended on Richardson Construction for employment. 3 full-time carpenters, 2 apprentices, and office staff faced unemployment if the company collapsed completely. Subcontractors and suppliers would lose thousands of dollars in unpaid bills. The ripple effects of Richardson Construction's failure would impact families throughout the local construction community. That evening, I walked through the sustainable housing development where Future Build Solutions was demonstrating capabilities my family had deemed impossible. Solar panels gleamed on completed rooftops while smart home systems awaited final programming. The project represented everything ID tried to convince Richardson Construction to embrace: innovation, sustainability, and adaptation to changing market demands. Standing among houses that proved sustainable building practices were both practical and profitable, I realized the cruel irony of the situation. Richardson Construction was failing precisely because they'd rejected the very approaches that were now generating success for future build solutions. Their financial crisis resulted directly from the stubborn traditionalism that had cost them the Greenfield development contract and countless other opportunities. The sustainable housing development would be featured in architectural magazines and serve as a model for future projects throughout Colorado. Future Build Solutions was building exactly the reputation and portfolio it envisioned when suggesting that Richardson Construction modernize their capabilities. But my family would likely lose everything before seeing whether their prodigal son had been right about industry evolution. I awoke to vibrations against my nightstand that felt like an earthquake localized to my bedroom. The phone display showed 6 missed calls, all from numbers I recognized but hadn't spoken to in months. Before I could process what was happening, the phone buzzed again with another incoming call. This time it was Sarah, my younger sister who'd maintained careful neutrality during family conflicts. "Leon, thank God you answered." Sarah's voice carried panic. I'd never heard before, even during childhood emergencies. "You need to get to Presbyterian St. Joseph Hospital immediately. Dad collapsed on a job site this morning. The paramedics said it was a massive heart attack." The drive to the hospital blurred past in a haze of construction zones and traffic lights that seemed designed to delay my arrival. Presbyterian St. Joseph's emergency department buzzed with controlled chaos. Nurses moving efficiently between treatment rooms, families clustered in waiting areas, announcements echoing from overhead speakers. Sarah met me at the information desk with eyes red from crying. "He was trying to install bathroom fixtures at the Morrison renovation when it happened," she explained, as we walked toward the intensive care unit. "Carlos found him unconscious on the floor with his left arm completely numb. The doctors say he's stable but critical. They won't know the full extent of damage until he regains consciousness." The intensive care unit hummed with electronic monitoring equipment and hushed conversations between medical staff. Dad lay motionless in a bed surrounded by machines measuring heart rhythm, blood pressure, and oxygen levels. Tubes and wires connected him to life support systems that kept precise track of every vital sign. He looked smaller than I remembered, diminished by illness and medical equipment. Mom sat in a plastic chair beside the bed, holding Dad's hand while staring at monitors that displayed incomprehensible medical data. She glanced up when I entered the room, and for a moment our eyes met without the disappointment or judgment that had characterized our recent interactions. Fear and exhaustion had temporarily overridden family conflicts, creating space for basic human connection. "The cardiologist said the next 72 hours are crucial," Mom whispered, as if speaking too loudly might disturb Dad's precarious recovery. "His heart muscles suffered significant damage, but they won't know how much until the swelling reduces." Marcus arrived 20 minutes later, looking haggard and overwhelmed. His usual confidence had been replaced by vulnerability that made him seem younger than his 34 years. We acknowledged each other with cautious nods, unsure how family dynamics would function during a medical crisis that rendered previous conflicts irrelevant. The waiting room became our temporary home as hours stretched into an uncomfortable vigil. Family members rotated between Dad's bedside and the corridor outside the intensive care unit, maintaining constant presence while allowing medical staff space to work. Conversations remained focused on practical concerns, insurance coverage, medical decisions, work obligations that needed attention during Dad's hospitalization. But underneath surface discussions about insurance forms and medical procedures, unspoken tensions created additional stress for everyone involved. Marcus fidgeted constantly, checking his phone for messages about Richardson Construction crises that wouldn't pause for family emergencies. Mom alternated between periods of silent prayer and detailed discussions with nurses about Dad's treatment plan. Sarah coordinated communication with extended family members while managing her own job responsibilities. During the second day of our hospital vigil, I overheard a conversation between Mom and a woman I didn't recognize. The stranger had approached our group in the waiting room with professional bearing and sympathetic expression that suggested official business rather than personal concern. "Mrs. Richardson, I'm Linda Crawford from Mountain Plains National Bank. I apologize for contacting you during such a difficult time, but we need to discuss the status of your business loan and mortgage obligations." The bank representative spoke quietly but firmly, indicating that Richardson Construction's financial crisis wouldn't pause for medical emergencies. Mom's face went pale as Linda Crawford explained that foreclosure proceedings would begin within 72 hours unless the family could immediately pay $200,000 to bring their loan current. The bank had attempted to contact Marcus about payment arrangements, but had been unresponsive to their communications while dealing with Dad's medical emergency. "We understand this is challenging timing, but federal regulations require us to proceed with collection activities regardless of personal circumstances." Linda Crawford continued with practiced compassion. "If payment can't be arranged by Friday afternoon, we'll need to begin legal proceedings to recover our collateral." The conversation revealed another layer of crisis that my family faced beyond Dad's uncertain medical recovery. They were 72 hours away from losing their home unless someone could produce $200,000 immediately. Richardson Construction's business failure was threatening the family's most fundamental asset, the house where Marcus and I had grown up, where Mom and Dad had built 30 years of memories. After Linda Crawford departed, Mom sat quietly absorbing the implications of potentially losing both her husband's health and their family home within the same week. The combination of medical and financial stress was clearly overwhelming, but she maintained composure that reflected decades of managing household crises, while Dad focused on business concerns. "I don't know what we're going to do," she admitted during a rare moment when Marcus and Sarah had stepped outside for coffee. "Even if your father recovers fully, the business can't generate enough revenue to catch up on missed payments. We've already mortgaged everything we own to keep Richardson Construction operating." That evening, while Dad remained unconscious but stable, I volunteered to retrieve personal items from the family home. The house felt simultaneously familiar and foreign after months of separation from family life. My childhood bedroom remained exactly as I'd left it, with construction awards and family photos creating a museum of relationships that no longer functioned normally. While gathering clothes and toiletries for Mom's extended hospital stay, I discovered documents in Dad's home office that provided disturbing insights into Richardson Construction's recent operations. Medical bills scattered across the desk revealed that Dad had been treating serious heart problems for over 6 months without informing his family about the diagnosis. Prescription bottles for cardiac medications, appointment reminders for cardiology consultations, and test results showing dangerous blood pressure readings painted a picture of someone who'd been hiding significant health problems while trying to save his failing business. Dad had been literally working himself toward a heart attack rather than admit that Richardson Construction needed help beyond his capabilities. The medical documentation also revealed why Dad's recent behavior had seemed confused or erratic. Several prescription medications listed side effects, including memory problems, difficulty concentrating, and impaired judgment. The man who'd built Richardson Construction through careful planning and attention to detail had been operating under the influence of medications that affected his decision-making abilities. But the most shocking discovery came from a hidden folder containing investment documents and business correspondence that completely changed my understanding of recent family conflicts. Dad had been secretly researching sustainable building technologies and renewable energy systems for over 18 months. Hidden purchase orders showed planned investments in solar installation equipment, smart home automation systems, and partnerships with green building suppliers. The folder contained emails between Dad and technology vendors, training materials for sustainable building certification programs, and marketing research about environmentally conscious consumers. Had been planning to transform Richardson Construction into exactly the kind of company it'd been advocating for years, but had been doing it secretly without involving me in the planning process. One email exchange with a solar panel distributor was particularly revealing. Dad had written, "My son has been pushing us toward renewable energy for years, and I'm finally ready to admit he was right about market trends. We need to modernize our capabilities if Richardson Construction is going to survive the next decade." The discovery fundamentally changed my understanding of family dynamics and recent conflicts. Dad hadn't rejected my ideas because he thought they were wrong. Had been planning to implement them, but wanted to maintain control over the timing and execution. The family rejection had been their misguided attempt to force me toward independence while they slowly adopted the innovations I'd been proposing. Sitting in Dad's office, surrounded by evidence that had been secretly planning to embrace everything it advocated, I realized that our conflicts had been based on misunderstanding rather than fundamental disagreement. They'd pushed me away not because they didn't value my ideas, but because they loved me too much to let me waste my potential working for a family business that might not survive industry changes. The phone calls that had awakened me that morning weren't just about Dad's heart attack. They represented my family's desperate realization that they needed exactly the expertise they'd rejected when pushing me toward independence. Richardson Construction was failing while Future Build Solutions succeeded, but we'd all been working toward the same ultimate goals through different approaches. The third day of Dad's hospitalization brought mixed medical news that created cautious optimism alongside ongoing concern. His vital signs had stabilized, and preliminary tests suggested that heart muscle damage might be less severe than initially feared. But full recovery would require extensive rehabilitation and permanent lifestyle changes that would prevent him from returning to physically demanding construction work. Dr. Amanda Chen, the attending cardiologist, explained Dad's condition in terms that emphasized both progress and limitations. Mr. Richardson's heart rhythm has returned to normal, and blood flow has been restored to previously blocked arteries. However, he'll need at least 6 months of cardiac rehabilitation and ongoing medication management. Physical exertion must be severely limited for the foreseeable future. The medical prognosis effectively ended Dad's active involvement in Richardson Construction's daily operations. Even if he recovered completely, insurance liability and health concerns would prevent him from performing the hands-on supervisory work that had always defined his management style. Richardson Construction would need new leadership regardless of whether the company survived its current financial crisis. Marcus struggled visibly with the implications of assuming full responsibility for a business that was already failing under his leadership. During quiet moments in the hospital waiting room, he admitted doubts about his ability to turn around Richardson Construction's deteriorating reputation and financial position. I know I've made mistakes, Marcus confided during one of our first honest conversations in years. I thought I could run the business exactly like Dad did, but everything's changed. Clients want capabilities we don't have, and I've been too stubborn to admit it. His admission represented significant personal growth for someone who'd built his identity around confidence and traditional expertise. Marcus was acknowledging that Richardson Construction's problems went beyond temporary financial difficulties to fundamental misalignment with contemporary market demands. You were right about sustainable building and smart home technology, he continued with obvious difficulty. I rejected your ideas because I was afraid they would make my skills obsolete. It was easier to push you away than admit I didn't understand where the industry was heading. Our conversation was interrupted by Mom's announcement that Dad was finally awake and asking to see his family. The intensive care unit allowed only 2 visitors at a time, so Marcus and I waited while Mom and Sarah spent initial moments with Dad's restored consciousness. When our turn came, Dad looked exhausted but alert. The mechanical ventilation had been removed, allowing him to speak in whispered words that conserved energy for essential communication. He grasped my hand with surprising strength while making direct eye contact for the first time in months. Leon, I need to tell you something important. His voice was hoarse from medical procedures, but his message was clear. I was wrong to push you away. Richardson Construction needed exactly what you were trying to give us. Dad's admission carried weight beyond simple reconciliation. He was acknowledging that family conflicts had been based on fear rather than rational business judgment. I found documents in your office that showed you'd been researching sustainable building for months, I said gently. You were planning to implement everything I'd been suggesting. For 2 years, Dad whispered with obvious regret. I was trying to learn enough to make changes without admitting I needed your expertise. My pride cost us valuable time and damaged our relationship unnecessarily. The revelation explained confusing aspects of recent family dynamics that had never made sense. Dad had been secretly studying renewable energy systems, sustainable building materials, and smart home technology while publicly dismissing those same innovations as impractical complications. Had been planning Richardson Construction's evolution while maintaining the fiction that traditional methods were sufficient for future success. I wanted you to be independent because you're too talented to waste your life fixing my mistakes. Dad continued with increasing emotional intensity. But I handled everything wrong. Instead of supporting your independence, I sabotaged it because I was afraid of losing control. His confession addressed years of professional frustration and personal confusion about family expectations. Dad had been systematically undermining my early independent contractor attempts, not because he wanted me to fail, but because he wanted to maintain control over my career timeline, while he secretly prepared Richardson Construction for modernization. The business is failing exactly where you said it would, Dad admitted. We lost contracts because we couldn't provide services that clients demanded. Marcus has been trying to compensate, but he's working with outdated methods in a changed market. Tom Bradley arrived at the hospital that afternoon with legal documents and financial statements that would formalize whatever decision we made about Richardson Construction's future. The accountant had prepared multiple scenarios ranging from complete business liquidation to merger arrangements that might preserve some value for my family. Future Build Solutions has the expertise and financial resources to acquire Richardson Construction's remaining assets, Tom explained while Dad listened from his hospital bed. The question is whether such an arrangement would benefit everyone involved. The merger proposal was complex but potentially advantageous for both companies. Future Build Solutions would gain Richardson Construction's established client relationships, equipment inventory, and experienced workforce. Richardson Construction's creditors would receive payment for outstanding debts, while preserving employment for people who depended on the company for their livelihood. But the arrangement would also require me to work directly with family members, who'd rejected my ideas for years before finally acknowledging their merit. Marcus would become an employee in a company built on principles Head initially dismissed. Mom and Dad would transition from business owners to consultants in an organization led by their son Vode been declared unwanted just 8 months earlier. The financial details were straightforward but emotionally complicated. Future Build Solutions would pay Richardson Construction's outstanding debts, assume responsibility for existing contracts, and provide my parents with ongoing income through consulting agreements. In return, WED acquire their client list, equipment, and facilities, while bringing their employees into our expanding workforce. There's one more thing you need to understand, Tom said, presenting documents I'd never seen before. Your father took out a life insurance policy naming you as sole beneficiary 2 years ago. The policy was specifically intended to provide startup capital if you ever decided to leave Richardson Construction and begin independent operations. The revelation fundamentally changed my understanding of Dad's long-term planning and motivations. While publicly discouraging my independence and privately sabotaging my early attempts, had been secretly preparing financial resources to support my eventual separation from Richardson Construction. His contradictory behavior reflected internal conflict between wanting to control my career and recognizing my need for independence. He believed you were destined for bigger things than working for a family construction business, Tom continued. But he wanted to ensure you had sufficient resources to succeed when you finally broke away from Richardson Construction. The insurance policy represented Dad's attempt to balance competing desires for family unity and personal growth. Had recognized that my talents exceeded what Richardson Construction could offer, but had been unable to support my independence directly because it threatened his identity as family patriarch and business leader. Sitting in Dad's hospital room while reviewing documents that revealed years of secret planning and contradictory behavior, I realized that our family conflicts had been more complex than simple disagreement about business directions. Everyone had been working toward my professional success, but through different methods that created confusion and resentment instead of collaboration. Dad had been preparing Richardson Construction for modernization while planning my eventual independence. Marcus had been defending traditional methods while recognizing their limitations. Mom had been maintaining family unity while understanding that our conflicts were damaging everyone involved. Sarah had been staying neutral while hoping for reconciliation that preserved relationships without sacrificing individual growth. The phone calls that awakened me 3 days earlier had been desperate pleas for help, but they'd also been invitations to complete a transformation that my family had been secretly planning for years. Richardson Construction's crisis represented the final stage of evolution from traditional family business to innovative company that could succeed in contemporary markets. But the transformation would require forgiveness, collaboration, and trust between people who'd spent years misunderstanding each other's motivations while working toward compatible goals through incompatible methods. The decision took 3 weeks of hospital visits, legal consultations, and honest conversations that addressed years of accumulated misunderstandings. By the time Dad was transferred to cardiac rehabilitation, WED negotiated merger terms that preserved Richardson Construction's legacy while expanding Future Build Solutions' capabilities. The combined organization would operate as Richardson Future Build Solutions, acknowledging both traditional craftsmanship and innovative building practices. Marcus accepted a position as senior project manager, bringing 34 years of construction experience and established client relationships to our expanding operations. His transition from business owner to employee required significant ego adjustment, but his commitment to learning sustainable building techniques surprised everyone, including himself. I spent years afraid that new technology would make traditional skills obsolete, Marcus admitted during our first formal team meeting. But working with solar installations and smart home systems has actually enhanced my understanding of electrical and mechanical systems. Carmen and Jake welcomed Richardson Construction's experienced carpenters and electricians, creating mentorship opportunities that benefited both groups. Veteran workers learned about renewable energy systems and sustainable building materials while sharing traditional techniques that ensured quality craftsmanship in all projects. The merger eliminated Future Build Solutions equipment rental costs while providing Richardson Construction workers with steady employment and opportunities for professional development. We inherited client relationships that had generated referrals for 30 years, alongside contracts that required immediate attention to prevent further reputation damage. Dad's recovery progressed steadily through summer and fall as Richardson Future Build Solutions established itself as Denver's premier sustainable construction firm. His cardiologist cleared him for limited office work that involved project planning and client consultation without physical exertion. The role suited his experience and abilities, while accommodating medical restrictions that prohibited hands-on construction activities. Watching you build this company has been incredibly satisfying, Dad said during a project review meeting 6 months after his heart attack. Richardson Construction could never have achieved what Richardson Future Build Solutions accomplishes every day. Our first major project as a merged organization was completing the sustainable housing development that had originally been awarded to Future Build Solutions. The timeline required incorporating Richardson Construction's workforce immediately while training them to work with unfamiliar building systems and materials. The learning curve was steep, but results exceeded expectations for both quality and efficiency. Local media covered the project extensively as a model for collaboration between traditional construction expertise and innovative building practices. The Denver Business Journal featured Richardson Future Build Solutions in an article about family businesses that successfully adapted to changing market conditions. Colorado Public Radio interviewed our team about workforce development in the sustainable building industry. Professional recognition validated the merger's strategic wisdom while generating new business opportunities throughout Colorado and neighboring states. Architects working on LEED-certified projects specifically requested our company because of our unique combination of traditional craftsmanship and cutting-edge technical capabilities. But personal satisfaction exceeded professional achievements. Standing in the same living room where Marcus had declared me unwanted 8 months earlier, I watched him demonstrate smart home automation systems to impressed clients. The space had been completely renovated, with solar panels, geothermal heating, and integrated technology that showcased everything Richardson Future Build Solutions could achieve. "This is remarkable," the client said while adjusting lighting through a smartphone app. "I never imagined that construction contractors could deliver such sophisticated technology integration." Marcus beamed with pride that reflected genuine enthusiasm for capabilities had once dismissed as unnecessary complications. His transformation from skeptic to advocate demonstrated that people could adapt and grow when presented with compelling evidence and supportive learning environments. Mom and Dad's consulting roles allowed them to remain connected to daily operations while transitioning gradually toward retirement. They participated in client meetings, reviewed project proposals, and shared knowledge accumulated through decades of construction experience. Their involvement provided continuity that preserved Richardson Construction's reputation while supporting Richardson Future Build Solutions' expansion. The family home that had nearly been lost to foreclosure was saved through merger proceeds that satisfied outstanding debts while providing financial security for my parents' retirement years. We renovated the house with the same sustainable technologies we installed for clients, creating a demonstration site that showcased residential applications of renewable energy and smart home systems. Tom Bradley's quarterly financial reports documented Richardson Future Build Solutions' rapid growth and strong profitability. The merged company employed 23 people, maintained contracts worth over $4 million, and had established relationships with suppliers and subcontractors throughout the Rocky Mountain region. This transformation has exceeded my most optimistic projections, Tom said during our year-end business review. You've created exactly what the construction industry needed, a company that honors traditional values while embracing technological innovation. But financial success was secondary to relationship restoration that allowed our family to work together productively for the first time in years. Weekly family dinners resumed in my parents' renovated kitchen, where conversations focused on shared projects and mutual achievements instead of old conflicts and misunderstandings. Sarah's wedding planning provided opportunities for Richardson Future Build Solutions to demonstrate residential renovation capabilities. We transformed her backyard with sustainable landscaping, outdoor lighting systems, and entertainment areas that showcased smart home technology applications. The project became another portfolio piece that generated referrals from impressed wedding guests. The sustainable housing development was completed on schedule and within budget, receiving recognition from the Colorado Green Building Guild as the year's outstanding residential project. All 64 homes incorporated renewable energy systems, smart home automation, and materials with minimal environmental impact. Residents reported utility bills that averaged 60% below comparable conventional homes. Standing among the completed houses on a clear autumn morning, I reflected on the journey from family rejection to collaborative success. Each home represented principles I'd advocated for years before finding opportunities to implement them successfully. The development proved that sustainable building practices were both practical and profitable when supported by adequate expertise and commitment to quality. Jake had been promoted to chief electrical engineer, leading renewable energy installations throughout Colorado while training the next generation of electricians in solar and smart home systems. Carmen became head of sustainable construction techniques, developing training programs that taught traditional carpenters to work with environmentally friendly materials and methods. The phone calls that had awakened me during Dad's medical crisis now brought opportunities from across the region. Architects in Wyoming requested consultations about sustainable building practices. Developers in New Mexico wanted proposals for renewable energy communities. Government agencies in Utah solicited bids for green building retrofit projects. Each opportunity represented vindication for ideas that had once been dismissed as impractical dreams. The sustainable building expertise that Richardson Construction had rejected was now generating business opportunities throughout the southwestern United States. We'd become regional leaders in a market segment that barely existed when I'd first suggested that traditional construction methods needed modernization. But the greatest satisfaction came from watching family relationships heal through collaborative work toward shared goals. Marcus had evolved from skeptical older brother into trusted partner, who embraced innovation while maintaining quality standards. Mom and Dad had transitioned from disappointed parents into supportive advisors who celebrated achievements they'd once dismissed as impossible. The construction industry had taught me that strong foundations support structures that endure for generations. Our family had rebuilt its foundation on principles of mutual respect, open communication, and shared commitment to excellence. The resulting relationships were stronger than what we'd lost through years of misunderstanding and conflict. Richardson Future Build Solutions represented more than a successful business merger. It demonstrated that people could acknowledge mistakes, learn from failures, and grow beyond previous limitations when motivated by love and supported by second chances. The company embodied values that honored traditional craftsmanship while embracing technological progress. As I locked the office after another successful project completion meeting, I thought about how rejection had ultimately led to redemption through persistence and forgiveness. The family who'd declared me unwanted had needed exactly what I offered, but timing and communication had prevented collaboration, until crisis forced honest evaluation of everyone's motivations and capabilities. The sustainable housing development's success had generated requests for 3 additional projects worth over $6 million in total contract value. Richardson Future Build Solutions was positioned to become Colorado's largest sustainable construction firm while maintaining the family-centered culture that had always defined our best qualities. Sometimes rejection is protection from settling for less than your true potential. Sometimes the people who push you away are the same ones who believe in you enough to force you toward independence and growth. And sometimes the phone calls that wake you from sleep aren't signals of crisis, but invitations to complete transformations that were always meant to happen. My phone buzzed with a text message from a potential client in Santa Fe who'd heard about our renewable energy expertise. The message represented another opportunity to expand Richardson Future Build Solutions' influence, while demonstrating that sustainable building practices were practical throughout the southwestern United States. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and opportunities to grow the business my family and I had built together after learning to value both tradition and innovation. The rejection that had once felt like ending was actually the beginning of something far better than what any of us had previously imagined possible. Have you ever faced rejection from people you thought would support your dreams, only to discover that the setback was actually preparing you for something greater? Have you experienced situations where family conflicts were based on misunderstanding rather than genuine disagreement? I'd love to hear your stories about overcoming rejection and rebuilding relationships in the comments below. Thank you for joining me on this journey of family reconciliation and professional triumph. Sometimes the most painful rejections lead to the most satisfying victories, but only when we refuse to give up on ourselves and the people we love. Remember that every ending can be a new beginning, if we're brave enough to keep building toward better tomorrows. If this story resonated with you, please like this video, subscribe for more tales of perseverance and family healing, and share it with anyone who might benefit from hearing that rejection isn't always permanent. Your support helps me continue sharing stories that remind us all that hope and hard work can overcome even the most challenging circumstances.